You're listening to the Primal Happiness Show, a podcast dedicated to helping you thrive in this crazy modern world. Every Tuesday, we explore the nature of how our minds really work, what exactly the human animal requires to thrive, and how we can live happier and more fulfilling lives. If you're new here and haven't yet taken our free class, then there's no better place to get a jump start on reclaiming your primal happiness. It's where we'll guide you step by step through our antidote to today's modern world. Simply head on over to primalhappiness.co/antidote to get the free class and discover how to thrive without having to move to a planet that's not so crazy as ours. But now, your host, Brook-Tyler.
Hello, my beautiful people. A huge warm welcome back to the show. In today's crazy modern world, men and women are living shallow, disconnected, and unfulfilling lives. So we created the path for those who are ready to reclaim their wildness and actualize their deepest gifts. And the next way you can walk that path is by joining our new crucible, Waking the Wild Medicine. This is for you if you know you came here to do important, much needed work, but despite all the years of seeking, you still haven't discovered exactly what it is. You're clear on what you came here to do, but the normal ways of doing business just don't feel aligned to you and maybe aren't working too well either. If you've been successful creating a living, doing something else, but you know your soul is now calling you towards something much deeper. Or if you're already doing your precious soul work, but you know you're now ready to create a previously undreamed of level of impact with it. During our 6 months together, we will guide you to uncover your deepest soul medicine, know who your people are and what they long for, create your medicinal offering that meets their longing, and become a beacon for your medicine in a way that magnetizes your people to it. If you're feeling called to this journey, if 2021 is the year that you will embody and express your deepest soul work, a great place to start is to go and watch our webinar on how to be your wild medicine. You can go and find a link to that at primalhappiness.co/medicine, or if you know you're ready, you can go and claim your place there too. Really hope to see you in circle in January. This week's show is with Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz. Kenny was called the Man Whisperer by Newsweek because not only does he help men achieve their life, relationship and career goals, he also helps men to be more authentically and powerfully who they truly are. As one of the UK's leading men's personal development consultants, Kenny runs workshops and sees individuals and couples for private consultations and has been running men's groups in London for 14 years. Kenny was traumatised at the age of 7 when his family had to flee certain death at the hands of the brutal dictator Idi Amin and was resettled as refugees in rural Wales by refugee camps. As a result of post-traumatic stress disorder, Kenny developed several mental health issues, including obsessive-compulsive disorder, Tourette syndrome, body dysmorphia, and depression with intrusive and suicidal thoughts. Thankfully, that's all behind him now. When asked how he turned it all around, he's fond of saying that he sat with the shadows that owned him, unlearned the untruths, and turned that energy into the fuel to walk his path and live his purpose, which he absolutely does. In this show, we explored how to know ourselves, to get into the feeling, how to stay in it, and how to navigate the way forward into the next phase as things get dark. It's in the darkness that we find the gold. Let's dive in. Hello, Kenny. Welcome back to the show for the third time, I think it is.
It is the third time. Third time lucky. This is going to be the best.
Every thing that went wrong last time will not happen this time. I don't think anything went wrong.
It's just brilliant to hang out.
Yes. Oh, so good to catch up. In fact, it was just nice just having a catch up before we started recording. Like, do you know what? We could probably be talking about this when we're recording. So, yeah, so it's been, of course, interesting times. And you were just reflecting that you've really seen parallels between what's been happening this year and very, very difficult events in your childhood. And so I think that would be a lovely place to start, a really powerful place to start, to see actually it's quite easy to dismiss like what's been happening this year as being not as serious, let's say, as what you went through. Yeah. But I think it's what I really was hearing is you're sort of seeing the same underlying, I guess, principles or way to navigate it. So I'd love to hear what you've got to say on that.
My wife and I went to a West End musical that a friend of mine's fiance was in. And that was the last time we went out as normal. And on the tube, on the way back, I got a message from someone who works with me saying, I've got the symptoms and I think I have COVID. So that was a bit of a shock. And as we got home, it was like, what's going on? This is weird. And we have to lock down. It's time to lock down. And I got home and it was like something familiar. There's something familiar going on. And then emotionally, at the back of my mind, I noticed I was looking out of the window and I kind of almost expected to see the military. And I thought, what's going on here? And I realized that I flashed back to when I was a child in Uganda. And it's hilarious the way people are comparing Donald Trump to Idi Amin these days. And it was, I remember curfew and I remember the fear of being out on the streets during curfew. I remember the military on the streets. We were in Kampala. I remember the gunfire. I remembered a lot of things that I was around and part of, but maybe didn't feel. And it brought the feelings up. But now, when I realized what was going on, I could feel them like a present and connected man. Where when I was unconscious, the feelings were more like a lost, scared child, like what's going on?
Of course,
so it's like, as soon as I named it, as soon as I followed the feeling that I was having, and this is something that I've got people to do since lockdown especially, is whatever you're feeling, just take a deep breath and breathe into the feeling and follow the feeling back. And that's exactly what I did. And I was straight back there. And I thought, well, if this is triggering me like this now, then I need to prepare. Because a lot of people are going to be locked up at home. A lot of stuff's going to come up and a lot of people are going to be triggered. So it's then, I think it was a week before official lockdown, that I organized myself to hold weekday lunchtime mini men's groups so men can check in and men can talk about how they are, what's going on. And it's just passed the tool of it's not about the drama in hand. It's not about your relationship or your children or the stories that people can so easily make to try and pretend to be in control of the feeling. But speak out what's going on and see what it triggers for you. And my need was for men to feel safe, and therefore those around them could feel safe. For men to not suppress things and push them down and pretend it's not going on and just get into doing and doing and doing. Because that suppression generally comes, well, I would say a lot of that lack of expression is depression. And sadly, low-level depression is so common for so many men as a normal part of life. And then very soon, the media loved the domestic violence figures, male to female, and not so much the female to male. But I just thought this is going to happen. People are going to be triggered and they're going to lash out because the energy needs to go somewhere. So for me, it was really important to set a place where people can come or men can come pretty much, well, it's every weekday, to talk about it and to get aware of which part of them inside is saying, take care of me and make me safe so I don't harm anyone. And so I'm more aware and more available to life. So it's really weird that my own really freaky, scary triggers, I remembered when we went into hiding the guards would shine lights on us in the rooms just to see us. And as a child, I thought, are these the people who want to keep me alive? Or are these the people that want to kill me? It was,
Wow.
things like that I knew, but I hadn't felt. Gunfire, things, but it's common, the number of people that have been through horrific situations, even just being sent to boarding school or being locked in the laundry room. You're not coming out until you stop crying and you're good. Meanwhile, the child doesn't know what's going on. All of these things came to the surface after being buried for so long, to be made peace with, to set this man free, to give everyone a chance of a safer time, a more aware time, and a way of navigating through this.
Oh, wow. I feel so moved. I'm feeling moved in two ways. One, just like really feeling how you've like met the moment so full-heartedly, like really seeing like there's a role for me here. I'm going to meet it. I'm here to do this, which just thinking of the men and not just the men, but how that's rippled out into the men who you've helped, how that would have rippled out into their lives. That's really moved me. And then I was also, you called to mind a conversation I had for the podcast last week with a chap called Tim Corcoran, whose work is around the wild and people finding their soul purpose. And he had a moment where he was working with a group of young boys, and one of them had a very kind of traumatic abuse situation when he was younger. And during this kind of initiation they were going through, he kind of like obviously had a flashback and it was all being released. And Tim had a similar event in his childhood, and he had a moment of connection where he could just see, I went through that so I could be here now and hold this boy and also the other boys who are all kind of almost being like that domino effect where everyone kind of releases at once. He just had that real strong knowing of, oh my goodness, I'm perfectly positioned, almost like you could see it like at a soul level. I chose to have that experience so I can now be here and do this work. And I had a moment, I mean, I don't know what your beliefs are about that, but I almost just had this like deeper sense of, wow, whether you see it as your soul chose you to have those experiences you had as a child, but either way, like how perfectly you are placed to help men in this way. Like, wow.
Yeah, I really felt that it all made sense. It all made perfect sense. Not just Uganda and refugee camps and everything, but after refugee camps, we moved to the small town in Wales, Fishguard, tiny little town, crossing to Ireland, and it was where we were the only family of colour. It was a very Catholic community, so my family's Catholic. And in those days, it was one of the poorest parts of Europe. And the caring and sharing that we experienced is phenomenal. The community. I drink a lot, so I don't cry.
Oh, your tears are welcome here too, Kenny.
I know, but it might be a distraction. I'd rather show up open-heartedly and tell the story than get distracted. But
I'm going to get a name for this. I made a guest cry last week.
Isn't it great to be open-hearted together?
Oh my goodness, yes.
This is
absolutely.
The place. These aren't stories. This is connection.
Yeah.
And the way that these people took care of us, we didn't know how to cook or clean or take care of ourselves, and they showed us. And it's everything that they taught me in Wales that I kind of thought, this is what we need here and now.
Oh, yes. Wow. I'm so glad you shared that part of it, because it isn't just the trauma. It isn't just the stuff that happened to us. It's also the ways that other people were there for us and helped us that we learned from. Like, wow. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
That's the other extreme. I was quite upset and also tickled when it was Andrex warfare.
Yes, the opposite. Yeah, the absolute opposite. Definitely.
And I thought, this is where it's going to start. It will start with fear and every person for themselves and hoarding And then surely at some stage, it's going to shift from fear into love and caring and sharing and neighbors. And it could be long lost friends or family or who knows what might show up in the space. But it all made sense. Absolutely amazing. And it's like, I get it now.
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh, yes. I love everything you've said. So bringing this to what you've seen play out in your work with men, and again, it really sounds like you absolutely rose the challenge and kind of your work with men has been amazing for, we spoke probably like a couple of times over the last couple of years about the work you've been doing, but it really sounds like you rose the challenge and doubled down. So what did you see that was, I guess, specific to this time in your work with men that was perhaps different or nuanced or deeper than the work that you'd done before?
What astounded me is the men who would never think about themselves or their histories or their emotions or their story or anything. Very often powerful men, and it could be powerful as in they're jet set businessmen, or it could be powerful as in they are a wow in society. So it might be drink, drugs, sex, whatever the distractions. But the men who have full lives, suddenly, with all of that taken away, they got stripped back, same as everyone, but they were the ones for the first time stripped back to the core. And at that core, it's not just the luxury of who am I, why am I here? It's more, I've got some stuff to deal with.
Yeah.
And they didn't know. Or they were just busy surviving, moving on, getting on with things that there was no space to know. And I'd say it's so common and I did it. And I guess it's a very unconscious thing is put it behind, move on,
yes,
survive. There's no space for this. There's no need for this. I remember my father once saying to me, and he's had a very, very beyond refugee, a very full and tough life. And he said to me, sometimes you've got to turn the page and move on. And I don't know where it came from, but my mouth opened and I said, I need to read what's on the page first.
Oh, gosh, yes. Wow. Yeah. Oh my God. And I really feel like metaphorically that's an archetypal pattern that is just playing out in our culture at the moment. Like just turn the page, like almost like frantic, obsessive, like habitual, just page turning because it's the only thing that makes sense and not very much reading the page. Yeah. Wow.
And where we've met in the groups, they're only an hour, but magic can happen in an hour. And sadly, most men over the 20 odd years I've been holding groups have shown up with what's wrong with me and how do I do me right?
Yes.
And in no time, they sink into there's nothing wrong with me. Who am I? And they start to let go of who they no longer need to be. And during this time of lockdown, there have been so many layers of who do I no longer need to be? Who do I no longer need to pretend to be? I can't put on this show. I'm out of control. I don't know what's going to happen. And it's letting go, and really being stripped back. But it's stripped back to authenticity, to vulnerability, to the most important questions rather than I can fix it or avoid it like this, and this. They've been taken away.
Yes, completely. And I think I have to just acknowledge you for this at the moment, Kenny, because that sounds like something that happens like effortlessly. And it probably to an extent is experienced that way, but so much that is going to be coming from like the way you're showing up, the very fact that you're showing up in that just absolute, this is who I am and I'm okay with that. This is authentically me and that's as good as it gets. And from that place, and then creating consciously a container that's an invitation for the men to relate to themselves that way, like that stuff happens. That happens like magic, but it has to come from like you being one of those rare men in our culture who's done the work to grow up. Like when I say grow up, I mean grow up in the real sense, like actually be this adult man who's able to experience himself in that way and hold himself in the world in that way, like, wow, like that's the magic.
It's so kind of you. And you know what an opportunity for us to grow and for this not to be the minority. And the professional people that have showed up to the groups, who are therapists and coaches and consultants and trainers, they've learned so much coming to the groups that some of them now have done. I do a one-day training, and I'm releasing an ebook in November, and it's just to pass on the tools. And they're kind of saying, I was good at my work, but I've discovered that there's so much more to me and there's so much more I can put into my work. And they've changed and they've grown and they want to take this into their practices. So I would say this very simple self-awareness and ability to take care of ourselves is just getting normal. Like, what an amazing opportunity. And men have showed up after a death, for example. Father died, or 10 minutes before I held one of the groups, I was told that one of my friends died, and it was a heart attack, and it was COVID related. And I've known him for decades. He came to the first ever men's group, and I didn't know why or what or anything. And I was in front of the group. And to be in the position that so many men who've come to the group are, and to say, this has happened, and to be asked, do you need anything? And it's like, no, I just need to say it.
Yeah. I'm so sorry about your friend, and thank you so much for sharing. I can, just so feel again your just absolute courage and vulnerability and willingness to show up fully from an open heart. And again, I think to be able to do that in a circle that you're leading, I think can be just the most powerful thing of all. To like see, like, no, it's even okay for him.
For us all to be together.
Yeah.
And to be with what is, rather than put on a bad show.
Yeah.
And pretend. And the most valuable thing has been for us to just be together and say, this is what's going on. This is what I don't know how to fix. This is where I'm at a loss. And also, this is what I've realized about myself. Or this is how I'm communicating with my partner. Or this is what my child said to me. And I'm really getting to know my children, and I've never spent so much time with them before. So it is good, bad, and ugly. But it's being together. It's totally being together. And I think with the amount of groups I've held over the months, and interviews and clients and everything, it's enabled me to get so much sharper and simpler sharing the tools. And in a very simple nutshell, for example, if someone brings to the group an issue with their partner or their parent or whatever it is, their work that's going on, rather than, typical immature male, jump in and fix it, or show that I'm the authority and I know how to lead this. It's nothing to do with that. And for me, the mature male is basically being able to, it's the feminine side, which is to listen and receive what's going on. And rather than fixing it because it's uncomfortable, to drop into my feelings with it. So I'm available to my own feelings of what I've heard, and to invite other people to drop into their feelings of what's going on. And then again, to follow the feeling back to know what's being triggered. So it's not about the drama in hand. It's about something that wants to be released. And then to say, look, if those are the feelings, now that was an unprotected boy or child, but obviously boy in these groups. And that unprotected, vulnerable child, there's going to be one adult who will take care of that child for the rest of your life. Now, it may not be your parents. It may not be your partner. This boy is not to be offered to other people to be saved and fixed. This is the child when you take a deep breath immediately, when you breathe in, just, feel, I've got this. You don't need to do this. You're safe now. And that's enough. The mistake I made when I kind of discovered finally the inner child stuff that I was avoiding so much is, right, now I need to take him to Disneyland, buy him gifts, explain why. It's like, that would be torture. Which child needs to be engaged by the head and tortured with stories of why no, a breath and just feel, it's okay. I've got this. And as the man in me takes care of the boy in me, the man in me is present and available to respond to life, rather than I have an abandoned child and my protector is going to react to life and keep recreating whatever it is that needs to be survived. And that's Groundhog Day. That is not the life. So the way that people have brought things up, and rather than one person fixing it or it being processed or anything, we open everything up to who else has had this experience and how have you succeeded in it? How have you failed in it? Who else can relate to this? And what does it bring up in you? So we are all equal and being with what is together. And then we have tools to manage ourselves, communicate, and really take part in the worlds that we are kind of trapped in, that suddenly doesn't have space on the outside, but the space and the quality and the depth on the inside and the way that's opened up has been a life change.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about times like this. In fact, I did a show last week talking about how fear and possibility show up at once. And so, yes, there's a lot of stuff here that's, a lot of people are going to be triggered into fear about. And for most of us, there's going to be possibilities of some kind too. And what you just said in terms of that opportunity to actually discover ourselves and discover how resourced we really are. Wow, probably the best possibility there is. I love that. So I've got a question I want to ask you, but I just want to highlight something you just said that I really loved, which is the way that so often in our culture, we're trained to listen from a perspective of, firstly, very unconsciously being in reaction to it before we've even, we're not even really listening because we're so in reaction. One way or another, it might not be an obvious kind of trigger, but one way or another, we often are in some kind of trigger against whatever's been said. And I love that invitation you're providing to those men of recognize what is coming up, what is that for you? And I think the moment we start to have that kind of level of inquiry and awareness of ourselves, everything changes. As soon as we're able to own, this is my stuff that's coming up for me.
Yeah.
I just absolutely love that. So,
and to see it as a gift, it's now that no longer owns me.
Yes.
That was an unconscious story or an old story, and it's not who I am. So now it doesn't own me. There is so much more of me that's available to life. And there's so much more that life can bring to me. And now that I'm present and connected, rather than in that survival frenzy, I'll notice.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That kind of idea that as soon as we actually are open to own that stuff that's coming up for us, it's actually got nothing to do with what's going on out there. It's ultimately we own what's coming up for us. It doesn't own us. It works so powerfully all the time. I love, love, love that. So before we started recording, you were talking about this idea of darkness, dark times ahead. And the way that we've kind of got through this first phase in whatever shape we've got through it. And again, hopefully, with the help of people like you, a lot of people are going to be far better resourced and in a far better place than they would have been without that work. And then you were talking about, and now it's about being ready to navigate the next phase into the darkness. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And I guess it might be helpful, first of all, to just define, why are you naming that kind of darkness, this dark phase ahead?
I feel the first phase was really getting to know ourselves. And it was summertime. It was light. It was happy. There were long days. And, the way to serve Queen and country was to sit on the settee and watch TV and eat pizza.
Mm.
It was almost like a celebration, and people had furlough, some people, and they still had an income, and they were getting in touch with long lost people and knowing them. It wasn't in a way that bad. It was the first phase. And I ran a workshop for alternatives that I called Conscious Isolation, which is all about what's it bringing up and how to be conscious and how to turn this around so the gems can rise to the surface and can be used to move on. And then now it feels like we're in a different phase. Now I'm holding workshops for alternatives called Conscious Reinvention. But it's not about who should I be to move into the world. It's more, who am I? And how do I allow myself to be seen so the space in front of me meets me? So I'm coming from I am and letting life meet me at my boundaries, rather than I'm coming from am I and who do I need to be and what do I need to do and all of that unconscious stuff. So I would say with the darkness as well, we have the change in weather. Furlough is going to end. Brexit's around the corner. Who knows what's going on in America? Who knows how it's going to be for people's careers and finances, illnesses, deaths, the disconnection and the loneliness that people have suffered. It's serious now. It's very serious. It's going to get dark, and that's not all bad. That's going in. And maybe it's going to go more into the unconscious or the subconscious, or you could call it some sort of an inner vision quest. What will I find in there? What's going to come up for me to know myself better? So it's going to get dark, but that doesn't mean it has to be bad, because we can meet in the dark. We can explore the dark and we can find the light. Another thing that I've said a lot to the men, and I would say this is really important to be held during this, is it's been very normal in society to kind of hover above the pain, hover above the old stories, and it's like just getting into it. No, I'm not going to go there. And just stay in this tension in limbo. Going into, maybe we could call it the pre-gold rather than the dark. And what I've said to the men is, if you're going to go there, if you're going to slip into it and move through it so it no longer owns you or restricts you and you're no longer carrying the baggage, then do it with company. Do it so you know that you've got a place to say, I thought this, I remembered that, I felt this, this has confused me, this has made me angry, I don't know what to do with this, just so you're held. And I know for a lot of my life, my intention was to fall apart while holding it together, because it would be polite and tidy. It would be surely rude and unruly otherwise. But the way that it is now is we have each other. And if people can't make the online groups, I've trained enough people that there are groups now. And, all sorts of places. And even with the groups, people have got to know it. People have made the best friends and had such quality company, and kind of said, why was I talking rubbish about sports and getting drunk all the time? And now suddenly there's a space for me to exist and be heard. Like, what was that about? But now people know that whatever it is that's up, they can speak it out and their stories no longer own them. So it's going into the dark rather than hovering above it, going into the dark and really picking up those tools. And it's the way that I kind of realized that my whole life somehow has been coming for how to be useful here and now for this big change that we're going through. Surely it's similar for everyone I've worked with. as they find their places of a fragmented spirit. And they meet those places. And it's not about fixing or processing, it's just being met in that sacred place. Then things shift. And that's the magic of just meeting there. And then the next part where the gold really comes in is that no longer owns me. So I can easily unlearn, or maybe not that easily, unlearn that behavior. And as I unlearn what's no longer true, that's where I pick up my tools. Somehow, magically. And these are the tools for my path. And I've pretty much found that with everyone I've worked with. And it doesn't necessarily mean you need to make a career out of it. But here's some purpose. Here's some passion. Here's some reclaimed personal power. Here's more of me that's able to connect, that's able to be love rather than be fear. Here's more of me to have the best time just showing up and being true and being able to properly laugh without thinking, am I going to grunt and do my teeth look funny? It's that, letting rip. But for me, that's beyond holding it together. That's through the dot and into the being.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. I love so much what you said. So first and foremost, I just more and more see that it's, if we do hope to have like rich, full, real lives, like it has to be done through that like medium of deep connection with others. And it can come in many forms. Some of us have our own coaches or have a kind of men's circle or women's circle, or we're just lucky enough to have like friends who are willing to meet us in that way. But like, it's non-negotiable. It's non-negotiable. And for most people in our culture, and I think probably you're right, it's probably more so men, it's probably not just going to be there at the pub by accident. But this is something that needs to be sought out or created. And again, thanks to the work of people like you, like it is out there, it exists, go find it. So I really, really hear you on that. This is not a path to walk alone. It really isn't. And everything you've said is so in alignment with what we've seen over the years with our work. So we often language it like becoming the gift that you are. Like we're all here as a gift, and we discover that in the darkness. It's not like all we discover is kind of like sad stuff. We actually do discover the gold. We discover that unique gift that we are. And for some of us, we're about to create a new program, probably in November, which is specifically about people discovering that, or further embodying that gift that they are in a kind of professional sense. People who maybe are change workers or artists, that really is about kind of being that gift they are from a work perspective. But I completely agree with you. That's not essential. It's not that's everyone's path. Some people, it's just, and I say just, it's not just, it's like what the world's made of. It's about how they show up fully as a husband or a parent or a neighbor or a daughter, whatever it is. Like that's the gift. It doesn't have to be something we make a career of. That's the gift. Yes. And I just love that. I see that over and over again with our work too. And so precious. I mean, again, if life's not about that, what is it about?
Exactly. And the quality of the being rather than just the doing. And it's not just being and showing up. It's wholeheartedly or without knowing to what. But if I'm present and connected here, if I'm being here, then I will somehow know how to respond. And I couldn't possibly pre-know that. That does not exist.
Yes, I love that. Yes. There's a deep sense of just, I think the more we have that, the sense of like how powerful we really are. Like, when we are really back to that real being of who we are, like we're powerful beyond any measure. Like we can respond to anything. I love that.
And empowered, again, the immature masculine would be power over, where the mature masculine is not just empowered, but able to empowered and empowering. And another thing that crossed my mind listening to you now is the efficiency of the pathway at the moment. It's not, oh, I think I'll do a workshop. Oh, I think I'll go on retreat. And I'll look for something so I can process something and I will look wonderful in my designer yoga outfit. It's not that anymore. It's nothing to look for. Here it is.
Yes.
It's not looking for trouble. It's life saying, you want more of life, then this is the part for you to release. This is the part to know. This is the part to accept. And then once that's done, it's like, oh my God, I feel so free. I feel so alive for 5 minutes until it becomes normal.
Yes. And then the next wave, yes.
Exactly. Here's another gift for you. Oh my God, you call it a gift? No, that's scary. Oh yes, of course, I remember this. And the most important thing, I mean, I've also dealt with suicide quite a lot over the last few months. And it's so important to, again, it's the being with. And to state that when I am suicidal, or when I have been suicidal, or when I have been in pain, or absolutely so freaked out, I have to remember that I'm not there now, which means it's past.
Yeah.
When I'm there, I believe that I've always been there. I will always be there. And I can't feel beyond there. It's like everything else, well, that was just a 5-minute joke. And I need this to stop. But just to remind, and this is the wonderful thing about the groups, is if someone says, I am suicidal, then rather than people being scared and trying to save and fix and whatever, we'll do a round of talk about when you were suicidal. And everyone shares where they were coming from. And that man is not alone.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. We are out of time. But
we
yeah, so much here.
Suicide.
I know. I'm trying to I was just like, Kenny, help. Right, where do we go from here? How do we where's the gold there? You tell us, share with us.
What an amazing place to meet any other human being. In the vulnerability of I am in so much pain. And from there, I'm not alone. And one of the biggest things that I've heard from the men is, I thought I was alone with this. I thought I was a freak. I thought I was a failure. I didn't know how to fix this. And as soon as I realized, and it could be the simplest thing, as soon as I realized I wasn't alone, something shifted. And it's as if suddenly I'm allowed. My kind of secret tagline for the men's groups is, I am one and I am one of. And for me, that means as I allow myself to be myself, as I accept myself, and I don't need to know myself inside out, it's in this moment, then I can allow other people to accept me too. And we can be one together. But it starts with me.
Yes.
And people will treat me in the way that I treat myself. And if I'm not treating myself well, then other people who've been there can share their tools.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love that. It's a paradox really, in the way that we do this work together, we walk this path together. There is just something that can't be replaced in that, us being together, seeing each other. And yet, like you just said, it starts with us actually being able to be in that kind of full acceptance, approval, welcome of ourselves. And that extends out to then how others will show up, both in terms of relationship to us, but also in relationship to themselves. There is something I just find so beautifully paradoxical about that. Yeah, how wonderful. And I think just to highlight something I heard in what you said, it's like whether that's suicidal feelings, whether that be some shame about something that happened in our past, what I just see over and over and over again, leading groups of this kind, is people always have that sense of like, it's just me. Yeah. It's only me that went through this. It's only me that feels this. It's only me that ever does this. And over and over and over again, all I see is like, always there'll be like often, at least half, often the majority of people have their own version of that. And it's like, oh, what a relief. Me too. Me too. No matter what it is.
Can I throw one final line that we use in the groups very, very often? And that is, name it rather than blaming it and shaming it. Because when I name it, it doesn't own me. Shame's not going to help me. And blame's just going to keep pointing the finger and not moving on. So here we are, ready for the next phase.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Kenny. So you've dropped in a few teasers about lovely resources that you have. Where can people find out about more of what you offer, both in terms of, I know you've got the ebook to help so that men can go and run their own groups, and also you do all sorts of other things. Where can they go find out about all of that?
Mensgroups.co.uk. And there you can come to the check-in groups, the open groups, find out about closed groups, train to hold your own groups. There's a one-day training. Beyond that, there is free resource so you can run your own groups. There's enough information to get going immediately. And in this month, we're going to be releasing the ebook. And the ebook is a lot more of the tools of how to hold your own groups. So hopefully there's plenty to just hand over and get on with it. We've got videos of men's groups that we've run, that we've done on the radio and bits and bobs like that. So, but it's not about, don't be us, be you. And there's, the menwhisperer.co.uk is my own website, but everything you will need for the men's groups, mensgroups.co.uk.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much as ever, Kenny. This has been just, complete delight. I love you, how you show up, what you're doing in the world. Just so happy you're here.
Thank you.
Wow. What a moving and also helpful episode. Here are my takeaways. If you notice fear arising, take a breath and follow the feeling back to understand what's going on for you. It'll often be a little child part of you feeling scared rather than a real threat in the moment. This time can reveal deep wounds that need tending, that until now you've found ways to operate over the top of because there's just been no space to deal with them. But maybe now is the time for you to read what's on the page rather than quickly turn it over. Find ways you can share what's going on for you and get support. Maybe that's a trusted friend, a circle of men or women, or a coach. And do please reach out to me or Kenny if you'd like support with that. If you'd like to get notes and links for everything we spoke about this week, and I know Kenny's cooking something very special up, especially this month in November, then do hop on over to the show notes, and they're at primalhappiness.co/episode 301. If you're feeling called to this journey of waking the wild medicine, if 2021 is the year that you will embody and express your deepest soul work, a great place to start is to go and watch the webinar of our replay on how to be your wild medicine. You can find a link to that at primalhappiness.co/medicine. And if you already know you're ready, go and claim your place there now. If you don't want to miss out on next week's episode, head on over to Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, or your Android or iOS app of choice and hit subscribe. That way you'll get each episode auto-magically straight to your device as soon as it's released. Thank you so much for listening. You've been wonderful. Catch you again next Tuesday.